So this video is from a group called Black Voices for Trump, and they did an amazing video on Joe Biden, especially on his crime bill. So we're gonna watch it, and I'll break it down.
The moment has come for our nation to deal with systemic racism.
What exactly is systemic racism or institutional racism? Individual racism is obvious. Systemic racism, however, is far more subtle, and it originates in the operation of established and respected forces in the society and thus receives far less public condemnation. Systemic racism is when black and brown citizens are kept trapped in lower society by privileged elitists in order to maintain power by creating a permanent second class of people. Systemic racism is the 1994 crime bill.
Biden's 1994 crime bill helped fuel mass incarceration with financial incentives to keep people behind bars.
Biden's record in the Senate actually reflects very racist legislation. Biden has made it a death penalty offense for everything but jaywalking. I like the idea they keep in jail longer. I'm the guy that wrote the bill.
Systemic racism is knowing full well that people trapped in poverty cannot afford lawyers to fight back against false allegations.
It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. It doesn't matter whether or not they had no background that enabled them to become socialized into the fabric of society.
It's breaking up families and creating entire generations of fatherless children.
The founder of Planned Parenthood was a eugenicist. Birth control, said Margaret Sanger, must lead ultimately to a cleaner race. We don't want the word to get out, Sanger said, that we want to exterminate the Negro population.
It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife.
Instead of building back better, systemic racism is deeming a community as an unfit, unsocialized group of people who cannot be rehabilitated.
We don't very well know how to rehabilitate them at that point. That's the sad truth. We have predators on our streets. They are beyond the pale, many of those people. Beyond the pale. We have no choice but to take them out of society.
Systemic racism is when you deprive generations of children from a quality education.
If I'm president, Betsy DeVos's whole notion from charter schools to this are gone.
It's when your own running mate calls you out for supporting institutional racism.
I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country.
Biden sought and received support from Mississippi Senator James Eastland. He frequently spoke of blacks as, quote, an inferior race.
And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing.
Do you think that his remarks about segregation as senators and his past policy on busing effectively disqualify him as a candidate?
I think the voters will decide whether he is qualified to run or serve.
Systemic racism is when you are a vice president to the first black president and preserved the unjust system.
The Black Lives Matter movement emerged under a black president, black attorney general, and black homeland security, and they couldn't deliver. You see? I'm like the token black. So I learned about roaches. Unlike the African American community, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black, they're going to put you all back in chains.
Joe Biden can't change the system. He is the system. But President Trump has begun to dismantle Joe Biden's systemically racist 47-year career. He signed criminal justice reform into law, increased and secured permanent funding for historically black colleges and universities. He fights for school choice, and President Trump took the lead on police reform last year. All of the issues that President Obama neglected and the policies that Biden could have changed in nearly a half a century in Washington.
America's ready of rooting out our systemic racism.
We agree, Joe. That's why you have to go. Systematic racism ends when Joe Biden is retired from public office.
You ain't black. You ain't black.
Damn. Paid for by Donald J. Trump for president. Approved by Donald J. Trump. Oh, interesting. I didn't know he had anything to do with this. But yeah, this group pretty much destroyed Joe Biden on his racism. Which, I mean, it should be very apparent at this point that Joseph Biden is a racist. The crime bill was mentioned so much in this video, as it should. It resorted to basically black communities being eradicated, people being separated from their families. What they do get wrong, though, you know what? I'll get back to that in a minute. But the left and its racism towards white people. The racism is wrong in general. You know, not saying, obviously not all black people are doing this. Obviously not all Democrats are doing this. Too many are doing this. It goes both ways. You know, at the end of the day, blaming a white person for something that happened to your ancestors 400 years ago isn't going to do anything for us. All it's going to do, it's going to be a never-ending cycle of victimhood and what we're owed. It's never going to stop. Because if we give black people reparations, now we have to give the Mexicans California and Texas back. Then we have to give the Native Americans all of America back. It's just a never-ending cycle. And it just has to die already, guys. It just has to die. Racism, all this division going right now. Between BLM, between the Back the Blue people, I've said it over and over again, and I don't know how many times I'm going to say it, because it's starting to get annoying. Even I starting to realize it's getting annoying. But, you know, at the end of the day, all these protests and all these divisions and all this blindly backing police officers, it does nothing. It's just division. And people on both sides who blindly defend the cops, who blindly defend people who shouldn't be defended, who take cops' tasers and tries to shoot at them, you're not getting anywhere, and you lose all credibility with people like me. Okay? I want massive criminal justice reform. The crime bill is disgusting. What you just heard is disgusting. But if you're defending criminals like Rashard Brooks and Latrell Allen, we're never going to get anywhere. Don't get me wrong. We need massive criminal justice reform. But that's not going to get us anywhere at all. The looting and the rioting, I see too many people blindly supporting it. That shit has to stop. The businesses that are getting burned, they're not Targets. They're not Walmarts. They're small businesses. I can give you dozens upon dozens of videos from news, articles talking about how people are burning small businesses, and instead of utilizing police officers and protecting small businesses and the people who are getting looted the most, which are poor communities, we're just sending the military out to mess with peaceful protests. It's all messed up. It's all politically motivated. It's all divisive, and it's disgusting. Okay? We're never going to get anywhere with this. Joe Biden is a racist. Joe Biden is a complete and utter racist. I mean, these people, Democrats like Joe Biden, truly believe that they are owed the minority vote, that they are owed the black vote, simply because they're Democrats. Did you hear what Cornel West said? He said we had a black president, a black attorney general. They still couldn't deliver. You know how many black people have been arrested for marijuana and drug possession under Obama? And then I just find the hypocrisy within this video, Black Voices for Trump. I get it. The Democratic plantation has really blinded you for a very, very long time. And you're not going to get a defense from me about the Democrats. Trust me on that one. But Black supporters for the GOP and Trump, what you guys have to understand, Donald Trump isn't for you either. Neither is the GOP. What had happened was you guys got red-pilled, but after you got red-pilled, you went right back to being blue-pilled. You left the Democratic plantation, which is great. I'm happy for any black person who leaves the Democratic Party. But then you made the horrible mistake of which usually happens, and you start supporting the other party. Because in your mind, it's always been the Democrats. It's always been them causing the problems, things like the tough on crime bill, things of that nature. But what you guys have to understand is that the GOP and the Democratic Party don't give a shit about black people, let alone the American people. Under Donald Trump, in 2018 alone, we had 604,000 people be arrested for marijuana. Now, if you use that same number and you add it to all the years Donald Trump has been president, including this one, you will see that, statistically speaking, under Donald Trump, we had 2.4 million people be arrested for marijuana possession alone. 6 million people for drug possession alone under Donald Trump. 6 million people's lives have been destroyed under Donald Trump with the drug war. So if we're going to bring up the drug war and the crime bill, let's bring up the drug war. Donald Trump isn't for you. I mean, his economic policies are not for the little guy. He doesn't want to give you free college. He doesn't want to give you Medicare for all. He doesn't want to do any of this. He's bullshitting you about lowering your taxes. The only taxes he wants to lower are corporation taxes. And then they give you this BS about Reaganomics, which doesn't work. We always have a recession right after we do these tax cuts for the billionaire class. The Democrats and Republicans have always been in bed together. They both vote for the wars. They both vote for the drug war. They both vote to keep the lobbying money flowing. All of them are being paid by lobbyists. All of them are being paid by Big Pharma. The military-industrial complex, the private prison complex, it's not just the Democrats, guys. It's Republicans. They're the ones putting us in this wage slavery and this feudalist system that are leaving people being evicted from their homes, leaving people having their cars repoed. They don't care about you. Donald Trump doesn't care about you. Especially as he's sending our brave men and women to die in wars that aren't for us, but for the billionaire class and for the powers that be. So it's and you know what? As somebody who was a conservatarian, who was a Trump supporter, I totally get where you're coming from. I really do. But it took me a very long time. Well, not a very long time. I figured out Trump's bullshit like 2-3 months of him being in office. But what you guys have to understand, Joe Biden is just a very, very tiny fragment of what's going on in this country, okay? The Republican Party, it is so detached from the American people. I mean, half of these people still don't even believe in gay marriage, let alone legalizing marijuana. So the Republican Party at this point, it's gonna die one day. And unless you guys start getting some libertarian-leaning, Republicans within your party, you guys aren't gonna go anywhere. I mean, you guys aren't heading anywhere good. Too many Americans disagree with eliminating the corporate tax. A lot of us are for gay marriage. A lot of us are 61% of Americans want to legalize marijuana. And the Republicans and the Democrats have no interest whatsoever in providing for the American people. So, and my final point the civil asset forfeiture. There was 1 year alone where civil asset forfeiture collected more money than burglars did in 1 year. So this whole system is broken. There's so many things that we have to talk about, so many issues that we have to discuss right now. We have a long way to go, guys. And the best thing you can do at this point is really just start being critical thinkers, okay? You know, at the end of the day, it's either going to be Biden or Trump. But it's like that because we choose it to be like that. These people don't deserve the presidency. These people deserve prison. Kamala Harris deserves prison. Donald Trump deserves prison. Mike Pence deserves prison. Joe Biden deserves prison. So, I mean, that's my take on it. You know, they did a really good job on this video. Don't get me wrong. You guys destroyed Joe Biden with this. But unfortunately, Donald Trump is just as bad as Joe Biden. And we really need to be able to start really understanding who's on our side and who isn't. Stop listening to their words and start listening to their actions. Their actions are the only thing that really matter at this point. And if we're going to keep going down this line of it's either the Republicans or the Democrats, then at this point they're just going to stop. The Democrats stop trying for their supporters. The Republicans are only trying as much as they are now is because they just really want Trump in office, and they just really want to keep what's going on. But what's going on right now is not liberty. It's not constitutional. So that's my take on it. Vote third party or don't vote at all. That's what I'm doing. I'm not going to tell you guys how to vote. I was just saying how I was voting. But, you know, the greatest threat to the Constitution is our ignorance of it.